trade rumors are intensifying, and we have a massive Winnipeg Jets trade update. As we all know, Kevin Cheveldayoff wants to upgrade at the defense position, and a writer has revealed a new trade target for the Winnipeg Jets, and it has Jets fans fired up. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Hattrick HQ and Winnipeg Jets Digest. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 72% of you on Hattrick HQ and 91% of you at Winnipeg Jets Digest are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's going on with the NHL and the Winnipeg Jets, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Now, KC, we went over a few trade targets the other day in terms of centermen, but we have an interesting one today to go over because obviously the Jets are looking for centermen, but they're also looking for help on the back end as well. And I want your thoughts on this. It is, obviously, this is from Murat 8, and it went over 10 options on D that the Winnipeg Jets could pick up. And one that really caught my eye, and we'll get into some of how the contract, and the salary cap structure affects the Jets going into next season. One that caught my eye is the New York Rangers' Keandre Miller. He doesn't have that high of a cap hit. He is an RFA this summer. He's not a UFA, which makes it that much more interesting. And he's having a down year, but he's a pretty good defenseman. What do you think about Keandre Miller possibly going to the Winnipeg Jets?
I like this trade for Winnipeg. I think this guy's a former first-round pick, I think at the 22nd overall selection. And like you said, he has had a down year, and he's in an RFA year where he's going to need an extension. So if he's having a down year, maybe you can get this guy for a little bit cheaper of a contract. But I think he's a very big impact defenseman, and maybe a trade to greener pastures would be what Keandre Miller needs. But this guy's a great defensive defenseman. He can shut down plays. He can shut down offenses. This is the type of defenseman you're getting with Keandre Miller, and it just helps the Jets get better on that left side. And I think that's what they need right now, Darius.
And we're going to get into, how he could help in terms of the actual lineup and what a trade might look like. But in terms of projections, because you brought it up there too, he's a guy that might not cost a lot because the New York Rangers actually want to rejig their entire defense core. I think they want to get rid of this guy. I think they also want to get rid of Ryan Lindgren, who's another option that we talked about going to the Jets as well, possibly. But I feel like Keandre Miller might, it might be a better move for Jets and the Jets fans, of course, because he is 24. He's a little bit younger, less cap hit for now. But again, makes a little bit less. You can easily fit it under the cap for the Winnipeg Jets, and he's an RFA. You have him under control. And now in terms of his projected salary, shout out to this account on Twitter that is NHL Contract Predictions. He's going to make almost $6 million based on this model next season. He's making 3.8 right now. So you can still fit that under your cap. And this was, I think, a better option than Logan Stanley at this point. I think Jets fans are done with Logan Stanley, and this is a guy who can play the exact same role come playoffs. And again, like you said, a change of scenery could do this guy pretty good for his play and for the Winnipeg Jets. Now, heading into this offseason, they're in a very interesting spot, the Winnipeg Jets are. They have quite a bit of cap space to use right now and deadline cap space. But this season, or this offseason, I should say, they have to sign a couple guys, including a couple UFAs and RFAs, including Ehlers, Sandberg, Velarde. I mean, you want to definitely try and keep Ehlers. There's a lot up in the air about that right now. But obviously, I think that they're going to keep their eyes on Velarde and Sandberg just because it's going to be a lower cost, even though Velarde is having a career year. But I think that definitely plays into acquiring Keandre Miller because of what he is going to make. You're going to have to resign him, even though he's under control. But, I mean, adding a 24-year-old defenseman who still has a lot of upside, who isn't having the greatest year in New York, I think there is a lot to that. He's 6'5". Again, he's good in transition. He's played more minutes against elite competition than any other full-time Rangers defenseman this season. So maybe that plays into some of why he's having a bad season, because they haven't had the greatest season either. So I think it's a very interesting option. KC, again, looking at his cap hit, a lot of fans are not the biggest fans right now, and we're seeing GMs across the league, acquiring guys on expiring contracts. They're not a fan of that right now. This is a bit of a different case. So do you think that this is a good thing for the future for the Winnipeg Jets to go out and acquire a guy like this? Because they're going to have to immediately sign him to a new contract extension.
Yeah, this isn't like going out and getting a 33-year-old guy for your Stanley Cup run here, and that's on an expiring deal. That's completely different. You're getting a middle 20-year-old guy here who's looking for a new team, and the Winnipeg Jets could be the perfect home for him. And if you can get him in on a relatively cheap deal here, like you said, projected around $6 million. He's getting 3.8 right now. won't go up that much, I don't think. I think you probably get him in here at 4, maybe 4.5 on a bridge deal. I think that's probably what you're going to get with him. You're not looking to trade for him and then lock him on an 8-year deal. I think you get him in, get him on a 2, 3 year bridge deal, the prove it type contract for Big Kev here. And if he proves that he can be this big defensive defenseman that this team needs on the left side, then after those 3 years, you pay him. And I think that's what Keandre Miller needs, is a new team to kind of push him a little bit more, because like you said, right now it's been tough out there for him this season. He hasn't looked the same, but I've been a guy ever since he's come into this league. I think has shown flashes of being a exceptional defenseman that can continue to hold a second pairing spot, and I think we could see that, especially in Winnipeg and a team that needs a guy like this.
And one thing to keep in mind too on the New York Rangers side of things, and some reports that have come out, I mean, this is just a projection based off of a model based on how he's playing, right? So it could be 6 million. He's making 3.8 right now. Obviously high praise from Peter Laviolette in the last little while. This is from January 23rd, of how he's upping his defensive game. Again, nobody on the Rangers is playing tougher minutes than this guy. And also, you know, the Jets have a lot of salary cap space. The other thing I wanted to mention in terms of on the New York Rangers side of things, it looks like they want to move off this player because he is wanting a significant raise. That is something that came out just a little while ago. That is a confirmed report from his agent that he wants a quote unquote significant raise. So that's kind of, you know, turning the Rangers fans and the organization off to him a little bit, because he hasn't warranted that with his play. But one thing I wanted to point out too, Casey, before we get into how he could fit into the Jets lineup, is he plays a lot. This is a guy who not only logs a lot of minutes, like he's almost 22 minutes on average a night. He's playing against the toughest competition in the league. So yes, he's a -4 and all this, and he's not, you know, providing too much for you offensively. And this season, he's not providing much offensively or defensively. He's getting burned a lot on the Rangers, but again, still a young player taking on a big role. I wonder if he settles into a different role with the Winnipeg Jets, and that could help him, because again, this is a guy who's logging a lot of minutes against tough competition. So if you put him in here in this lineup, I'm going to throw it over to you again, Casey. Where do you think he could slot in? Because their top 4 kind of looks solidified to me, but I think, you know, if you were to replace Stanley with a Keandre Miller, or even put Keandre Miller on the second pairing there, I mean, that obviously you're going to have to pay him next year, and probably around 6 million, upwards of 5 million. You know, if he comes into this team and plays a bit of a different role, I feel like this is a guy who could really flourish in this lineup.
I know you've been really high on Sandberg playing with Pionk here, but I think Keandre Miller and Pionk, that pairing would be lethal. I think Miller, he's 6'5", he's a big kid. And I think having him, that's he you know, he can back you up. He can shut down a play. He can shut down a 2-on-1 every now and then. Gives Pionk a little bit more freedom here to lean more into his offensive side of his game and not be afraid to step up and make a play happen. So I think this trade would be the best for Neil Pionk. I think he would really like to be playing with a player like this. And we have seen Sandberg be very solid. I'm not saying he's been bad all year or anything, but I think getting a guy who's more established, he's logged more ice time, like you said. I think this guy could really be a missing piece for this Winnipeg Jets team. I think the defense right now, it doesn't look bad on paper, but getting one more piece in here to solidify it going down the stretch is what they need. And I think Keandre Miller is the guy that they do need, because even if they don't play him with Pionk and they say put him in place of Stanley here, he's logging less minutes than he was in New York. So then maybe he's not as tired. Maybe his problem right now is maybe he's too tired. Maybe he's playing too much. So if you take some ice time away from him, yeah, it's going to suck for him because he's probably not going to get paid a lot more that he wants. But I think this could be the best system for him in a year where the New York Rangers kind of have surprisingly been playing pretty bad. I think getting him out of that, you know, funk, and getting him out of that mentality and getting him into the best team in the NHL right now in the Winnipeg Jets would just bring his morale up, and I think he'd find his edge again here.
Yeah, there could be a bit of that. Like maybe he's drowning in New York with his current situation, right? Like he can't really find his game because he's playing against the toughest competition at still a young age. He's only 25, right? He's only been in the league for a little while at this point. So it's going to get very interesting. I know Kevin Cheveldayoff has something up his sleeve. He wants to upgrade the team in a couple areas here. I think it's at center. Could be on the wing. We had a video on that yesterday as well. And it could be on defense because, again, like you mentioned, on paper it looks fine, but I think there may be a piece or two away from really making a big splash here in the postseason. So it's going to be interesting to watch. And if this year's NHL trade deadline is anything like the NBA's trade deadline, we're in store for a good show. But we want to hear what you have to say in the comments about this. Keandre Miller to the Winnipeg Jets. Could that be a good fit? Obviously, it's better than a older rental. So we want to hear your thoughts on that as well. And if you haven't yet, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything going on in the NHL and the Winnipeg Jets.